Have you ever wondered why history's most powerful men spoke of self-mastery as the greatest of all achievements? Why Napoleon Hill, after studying hundreds of millionaires and leaders, discovered they all shared one common trait: absolute control over their sexual energy? The answer lies in something our hypersexualized society wastes every day: the purest life force within you. Imagine for a moment you possess an energy source so powerful it can completely transform your mind, your body, your presence in the world, and your ability to manifest your deepest dreams. Now imagine you've been pouring this energy down the drain every day of your life, believing you're simply relaxing or relieving stress. This is the silent tragedy of the modern man. He lives like a king who distributes his riches without knowing their true value. What happens to your body, mind, and the spirit when you retain your vital essence for 7 days is not the same as what happens at 90 days. They are two completely different universes of transformation, two stages of an alchemic journey few men dare to fully traverse. And today, you'll discover not only the scientific and energetic differences between these periods, but also why this practice may be the missing key to unlocking the extraordinary man within you. Most men live in a perpetual state of energetic depletion. They wake up tired, spend the day in a mental fog, feel irritable, anxious, unfocused, lacking personal magnetism. They blame work, stress, age, anything but the obvious. They're constantly draining their life force through frequent ejaculation. Our society has normalized this. We're told it's healthy, good for the prostate, relieves stress. But these are half-truths, hiding a much deeper reality. When you ejaculate, you're not just releasing seminal fluid. You're releasing a substance your body took days to produce, rich in zinc, magnesium, proteins, vitamins, and most importantly, vital energy, the ancients called hojas, the essence of human vitality. Each ejaculation costs your body roughly the equivalent of donating blood. Your nervous system becomes depleted, your hormones fall out of balance, your subtle energy dissipates. In the first 7 days of retention, your body begins a silent revolution. Testosterone levels begin to gradually rise. By day 3, you may notice a different energy coursing through your veins. By day 5, your mind becomes clearer, your decisions more assertive. On day 7, something extraordinary happens. Your testosterone levels reach a peak of approximately 145% of normal levels. This isn't just a number on a blood test. It's a completed transformation in how you relate to the world. But here's what science has discovered, and few understand. After that 7-day peak, hormonal levels begin to stabilize at a new plateau. They don't return to normal. They remain elevated, but in a balanced way. It's as if your body is learning a new way of being. And it's at this point that the real magic begins. Between days 10 and 30, you enter what ancient tantric texts call the awakening of the inner warrior. Your energy is no longer being wasted in vicious cycles of arousal and depletion. Instead, it begins to circulate throughout your system, nourishing your brain, strengthening your nervous system, intensifying your magnetic presence. Men who go through this period report more vivid dreams, sharper intuitions, a capacity for concentration they haven't experienced since childhood. But it's at 90 days that the true transmutation occurs. Here we're no longer just talking about hormones and neurotransmitters. We're talking about a complete reorganization of your energetic identity. Your sexual energy, instead of being wasted through compulsive releases, begins to rise up the spine, fooling higher centers of consciousness. Yogis called this Urdhavaretas, the one who directed his energy upward. At 90 days, men report phenomena or materialistic society would have difficulty explaining crystal clear mental clarity, an impressive ability to manifest, a presence that naturally attracts opportunities, deeper relationships, financial success that seems to flow more easily. This isn't empty mysticism, it's practical alchemy. It's the energy that was once wasted being redirected toward your highest goals. Napoleon Hill, in his studies of the most successful men of his time, discovered they all practiced, consciously or unconsciously, sexual transmutation. Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Andrew Carnegie, they all understood that sexual energy is creative energy in its purest form. When you waste it, you waste your potential to create wealth, influence, impact on the world. And that's precisely why, if you're starting to feel this energy awakening within you, if you're recognizing that there's a different way to live your masculinity, I want you to subscribe to this channel right now and hit the notification bell, because what you'll discover here isn't just theory, but a complete system of masculine transformation passed on principles that have changed the lives of millions of men throughout history. This journey we're embarking on together is just the beginning of a revolution in your life. Subscribe now, because in the next videos, I'll reveal specific techniques that will accelerate your transformation in ways you can't even imagine possible. Let's revisit this 90-day journey, because this is where we confront the shadows our society doesn't want you to see. Compulsive masturbation isn't just a habit, it's an escape mechanism. It's how we avoid facing our emotional pain, our fears, our feels, our feelings of inadequacy. Every time you rush to the instant relief of ejaculation, you're essentially telling your subconscious, I'm not strong enough to transform this energy into something greater. In the early days of retention, these shadows emerge in full force. You'll feel waves of desire that seem overwhelming. Your mind will concoct elaborate justifications for you to justice ons, release the tension. You'll experience irritability, anxiety, an energy that seems directionless. This isn't a problem. It's the process. It's your psyche reorganizing itself. It's your vital energy searching for new outlets. Here's what happens energetically during these critical first few days. Your sexual energy, accustomed to being regularly drained, begins to accumulate in what tantric texts call the sacral chakra, located in the pelvic region. It's like a pressure cooker starting to boil. Your task isn't to open the valve, it's to learn to direct that pressure upward, transforming steam into motion. Between days 20 and 40, something fascinating happens in your brain. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, increases significantly. Neural pathways that connected you to the addiction relief guilt addiction cycle begin to weaken, while new pathways form. Your dopamine, which was being constantly triggered by artificial sexual stimuli, begins to become sensitive again to real achievements, genuine goals, the pleasure of building something meaningful. It's at this stage that men often report the return of ambitions they've forgotten. Abandoned projects resurface with renewed vigor. Stagnant relationships gain new life. Business opportunities that previously went unnoticed jump out. This isn't a coincidence. It's your creative energy finding new outlets. But it's between days 60 and 90 that the true transmutation occurs. Here, your sexual energy has completed its cycle of sublimation. It's no longer pooled in the sacral chakra. It has risen, passed through the heart, reached the throat chakra, and reached the third eye. You're no longer battling compulsive desires because your energy has found expression in higher levels of consciousness. Men who complete a 90 days report extraordinary phenomena, a sharpened intuition guiding them in business decisions, an ability to influence people they didn't possess before, clarity about their life, purpose that dissolves years of confusion and hesitation. They speak of synchronicities, coincidental encounters that open doors, opportunities arising at precisely the right moment, ideas arriving like revelations. Science is beginning to understand what ancient masters always knew. Sexual energy is neuroplastic. It can be redirected, transmuted, elevated. Recent studies on neuroplasticity show that prolonged periods of semen retention lead to structural changes in the brain, particularly in areas associated with focus, determination, and creativity. Mantak Chia, who dedicated decades to studying Taoist energy cultivation practices, explains that semen contains substances, the T, phase and they contain substances, the T, when reabsorbed by the body, nourish the brain and nervous system in ways Western medicine is only beginning to understand. Each ejaculation wastes approximately 200 to 500 million sperm, each carrying not only genetic material but concentrated vital energy. When you retain this essence, it doesn't simply remain stagnant in the reproductive system. Through processes science is still mapping, it's reabsorbed and redistributed throughout the body. Tantric texts speak of subtle energy channels that carry this refined energy to higher centers of consciousness. Modern science is discovering neurological correlates to these ancient energy maps. But here's something few understand. Semen retention without conscious transformation can lead to energetic stagnation. It's not enough to simply not ejaculate. You need to give your sexual energy productive outlets, intensive physical exercise, artistic creation, building businesses, developing skills, serving others. These are the ways your sexual energy transmutes into manifestation in the world. Napoleon Hill discovered that highly successful men frequently experience periods of intense creative focus coinciding with periods of sexual abstinence, not through repression, but through conscious redirection of energy. They intuitively understood that the energy that creates life also creates wealth, influence, legacy. Think about it, the sexual act is, literally, the most powerful creative act there is. It's through it that new human beings are brought into existence. When you waste this energy on instant gratification, you're wasting your most fundamental creative power. When you conserve and consciously direct it, you become capable of giving birth to projects, businesses, works of art, personal transformations that impact not only your life, but the lives of everyone around you. At 90 days, you're not the same person who began this journey. Your posture has changed. You walk with more confidence, occupy space differently. Your voice carries more natural authority. Your eyes shine with an intensity people notice, even without knowing why. You've developed what the ancients called tejas, an inner radiance that emanates naturally when vital energy is being conserved and refined. But perhaps the most profound transformation occurs in your relationship with fear. Men who complete long cycles of retention report a dramatic decrease in anxiety and a much greater ability to take calculated risks. This makes sense when you understand that sexual energy, at its core, is liquid courage. It's the force that drives all mammals to risk their lives for the continuation of the species. When you conserve this energy, you conserve courage. That's why men practicing semen retention often make decisions that once seemed impossible. They quit soul-crushing jobs to start their own businesses, end toxic relationships that drain their energy, and invest in themselves in ways that require faith in their future potential. Sexual energy is essentially risk energy. When you conserve it, you naturally become more willing to bet on yourself. At the same time, men in prolonged retention develop a much greater capacity for discernment in intimate partnerships. They stop being attracted to superficial sexual stimuli and begin to value deeper connections. They seek partners who elevate their energy instead of draining it, who inspire their goals instead of distracting them from their purpose. This is a crucial point that our hypersexualized culture doesn't understand. True sexual attraction stems from vitality, not deficiency. When you're constantly depleted through frequent ejaculation, you become needy, desperate for sexual validation. When you're in retention, you radiate vitality, and vitality is magnetically attractive. But let's be clear about something. This isn't an easy journey. Between 30 and 60 days, many men go through what we might call the dark night of the sexual soul. This is when all their shadows, related to sex, power, and masculinity emerge to be confronted. You may feel anger for no apparent reason, deep sadness, a sense of existential loneliness. This isn't a side effect, it's the purification process. Your psyche is releasing years of toxic programming about masculinity, years of wasted sexual energy, years of lost connection with your inner power. It's as if your unconscious mind is doing a spring cleaning, and all the emotional garbage that was hidden under the rug of instant gratification is emerging to be processed and released. Many men give up at this stage. They interpret these difficult sensations as signs that they're doing something wrong, when in fact they are signs that they're doing something very right. This is where the difference between repression and transmutation becomes clear. Repression tries to deny sexual energy. Transmutation fully accepts it and consciously redirects it. Ancient techniques like pranayama, breath control, intense physical exercise, meditation, and artistic creation serve not only to burn excess sexual energy, but to elevate it through the body's energy centers. When you feel intense waves of sexual desire, instead of succumbing or repressing, you can use specific techniques to elevate that energy to the heart, transforming lust into love, to the throat, transforming it into creative expression, to the third eye, transforming it into vision and intuition. By 90 days, this transmutation becomes natural. You no longer need to fight impulses because you've learned to instantly transform them into fuel for your greater goals. You've developed what alchemists call the philosopher's stone, the ability to transform base metals, primitive impulses into gold. Here achievement. And here's perhaps the deepest aspect of this entire journey. You discover that sexual energy is fundamentally spiritual energy. It's the Kundalini force of the Vedic texts. It's the inner fire of the alchemists. It's the libido that Jung recognized as fundamental psychic energy. When you learn to consciously work with this energy, you're not just improving your sexual performance or your ability for material manifestation. You're awakening dimensions of consciousness that remain dormant. Men who complete a multiple 90-day cycles often report experiences that our secular culture would have difficulty classifying: moments of transcendent clarity, feelings of connection to something larger than themselves, intuitions that prove incredibly accurate, synchronicities that suggest a hidden order in the universe. They haven't become different people, they've become who they always were, but without the layers of energy dissipation that obscured their true nature. This is the fundamental difference between 7 days and 90 days of retention. At 7 days, you experience an increase in energy, but still within the parameters of your current identity. At 90 days, you undergo an initiation, a symbolic death of the man who wasted his life force, and a rebirth as someone who consciously cultivates it. But here's something crucial. This transformation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It requires context, purpose, conscious direction. Retained sexual energy needs elevated channels of expression, goals worthy of your life force, projects that demand your maximum creative energy, relationships that honor your new capacity for presence and intimacy. Without this conscious direction, retained energy can turn into irritability, spiritual arrogance, or even psychological disturbances. That's why the ancient traditions that taught semen retention always did so within a larger context of ethereal development, service to others, and cultivation of virtues like compassion, humility, and wisdom. The modern man embarking on this journey needs to create his own context of meaning. He needs to ask himself, why am I conserving this energy? What is the greater purpose that justifies this discipline? The answers may vary. Building a business, creating a work of art, developing a deep relationship, serving a greater cause. But the energy needs direction to avoid becoming destructive. And this is where we arrive at the inevitable conclusion of our journey. Mastery of sexual energies, fundamentally self-mastery. It's the ability to consciously choose how to use your life force instead of being enslaved by unconscious impulses. It's the difference between being a man who reacts to circumstances and a man who creates them. Napoleon Hill was right when he said that self-mastery is the foundation of all true success. But he went further. He recognized that mastery of sexual energy is the most crucial aspect of that self-mastery, because it is through sexual energy that we create not only children, but our own reality. It is through it that we manifest our deepest dreams into the material world. The 70-day journey is, fundamentally, a journey of remembering who you truly are. Beneath all the layers of societal conditioning, beneath all the compulsive habits, beneath all the energy dissipation, there exists a man of untamed power, boundless creativity, and magnetic presence. This man isn't dead. He was merely asleep, systematically drained of his life force. Each day of conscious retention is a day you feed him back to life. Each moment you choose to elevate your energy instead of wasting it is a moment you reclaim your true power. Every time you transmute desire into creation, impulse into purpose, sexual tension into spiritual energy, you take a step toward your authentic nature. The man you become at 70 days isn't a different person. It's who you always were, but free from the energetic chains that kept you bound to patterns of mediocrity. He walks differently because his energy is no longer being drained from his feet. He speaks differently because his voice emerges from a power center that wasn't constantly being empty. It creates differently because his creative force isn't being wasted on momentary gratification. And perhaps most importantly, he loves differently because he has learned to love himself enough to not waste his vital essence. And from this self-love arises an ability to love others in a way that isn't needy, possessive, or draining, but that nourishes, inspires, and elevates. This is the true promise of sexual transmutation, not just material success or personal power, but the ability to become a source of positive energy in the world. To be someone whose presence uplifts others, whose projects contribute to something larger, whose love genuinely transforms the lives it touches. The difference between 7 and 70 days of retention is the difference between touching the surface of your potential and diving into the depths of who you truly are. It's the difference between catching a glimpse of your power and completely integrating that power into every aspect of your life. It's the difference between a temporary change and a permanent transformation that defines the rest of your existence. The invitation just before you continue wasting the force that could completely transform your life or begin the most important journey a man can make. The journey back to your authentic power, your boundless creativity, your innate ability to manifest greatness in the world. The choice, as always, is yours. But now you know exactly what you're choosing between. And that, in itself, is already the first step of transmutation.